when you demoralize the police, because defunding the police happens in a fiscal year, right? So if you talk about defunding now, you have to wait till the next budget then to cut the budget. So they may not have the effects of the defunding until the next fiscal year. However, when you mention it, you start to demoralize the police department. You start to create rhetoric, and the morale of the police department begin to crumble. Police begin or they eliminate proactive policing, which is one of the main key of policing to help the community and to stop crime is being proactive. That perspective of policing begins to go away. Good officers with training and experience and leadership leave the police department through retirement. And then you have young people coming up with no guidance, young people coming up lost in the police department. And then if you don't pay them well, the people who are good and they'll get another job, then you're going to be stuck with people who may not everybody, but may not be as qualified. And then you have unqualified police without proper training and finance.
One of the things that I find interesting about this is there's a certain obsession with the trials, an obsession with all the minutia of what happened. And I think what you said a moment ago is right. It's like, you guys have to make snap decisions. It doesn't mean all the decisions are right. But then months later, you got lawyers and judges and trial experts and everybody looking at everything with a microscope. And it's like, that's not exactly how it all happens in real life.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think of this. You know, some people have probably experienced a dramatic situation where they felt afraid, or a tense situation where sometimes they feel like they froze, or they had tunnel vision, or they didn't know what was going on. They're shaking, adrenaline's rushing. You got to imagine the police officers are experiencing what you are experiencing, but then have to make a decision whether to kill somebody or not, or whether to, do different arrests or chase or in a split second. And then after the fact, people Monday morning quarterback and say, I wouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have shot that person. But it's like the same fear that you feel from somebody knocking on your door whom you don't know who it is, which is nowhere near the fear of a man pulling a gun out on you, or you think he pulling a gun out on you. I just wish that people could have a glimpse into policing where they could say, okay, I understand. I may not agree. The cop may be wrong, but at least I'm coming from a standpoint and saying, I understand the stress. I understand what these officers may go through. There may be another side of this that I may need to consider before making a formal conclusion. So the goal is not to convince or brainwash anybody into anything, but to say there's another side of this that you may want to be privy to so you can make an educated opinion about things that go on in law enforcement.
You talk about the media a lot in the book, obviously. I mean, is that problem that you're laying out right there, is that purely on the media, or should the police departments be doing something different? Should the, the mayors, the governors, like where does that really fall when you have that disconnect between what's really going on and then what we see?
I think there's blame to go around in all aspects. Law enforcement, I would like to consider them to hold themselves accountable as well, and that we need to work on our messaging. We need to work on being more involved in the community. We need to recruit individuals from the community to be a part of the police department. So the police department has an objective. The leaders, local government, they have an objective as well. I mean, they need to push and promote and support the joining together of the community and police, and also parents, people who are in the community. It's not just the police officers. You need to raise your children in a way in which you're not demonizing law enforcement before they ever have an interaction. Why can't you go out as a community leader and say, look, we want to be more involved in the community. We want to do ride-alongs. Everybody together should work in a sense to make sure that connection happens. I don't believe it's just one side or the other. I think everybody has to come together, and then we can see a better, more equitable relationship between law enforcement and the community.
Right. That was equitable in a good sense, not the way that the word is usually used. How worried are you? How worried are you that that basically what has happened now in the Democrat cities, in the progressive cities, is they've demonized the police to such a point and defunded the police to such a point that not only are you going to get less qualified people, but that the breakdown is just too severe. Sort of like in Minneapolis, Ilhan Omar, she defunded the police. And then when people saw crime spike and murders spike and everything else, what'd she do? She blamed the police for not doing their job because there weren't enough of them. I mean, it's extraordinary. You got to kind of admire the evil. Yeah,
I mean, these people I think that they are not acting in good faith, right? I believe they push rhetoric that they think could be trendy enough to get them elected, but it doesn't have real life application. And in many cases, they would love to see things get destroyed so they can be the focus of change. You know, it's like, no, you created the problem. Now you want to be the solution to the problem. You know, and I think that that's where they're coming from. The citizens are experiencing this. I mean, when you demoralize the police, because defunding the police happens in a fiscal year, right? So if you talk about defunding now, you have to wait till the next budget then to cut the budget. So they may not have the effects of the defunding until the next fiscal year. However, when you mention it, you start to demoralize the police department. You start to create rhetoric, and the morale of the police department begin to crumble. Police begin or they eliminate proactive policing, which is one of the main key of policing to help the community and to stop crime is being proactive. That perspective of policing begins to go away. Good officers with training and experience and leadership leave the police department through retirement. And then you have young people coming up with no guidance, young people coming up lost in the police department. And then if you don't pay them well, the people who are good and they'll get another job, then you're going to be stuck with people who may not everybody, but may not be as qualified. And then you have unqualified police without proper training and finance. So I really wish that people would take a step back and look at it and say, what are the complaints of law enforcement? Okay, they need better training. Okay, we need more funding so that we can train officers, recruit better officers. That takes more money, not less money. Now you can reallocate funds if you feel like there's wasteful spending. But to completely defund them. Defund. Yeah. I was going to say devalue, demonetize, but defund the police.
We'll be demonetized. We know that.
Right. I'm so used to that word demonetization. So to defund the police it's not a winning strategy, and the crime rate has spoken on that behalf.
Do you see any hope in that regard, that as we've seen these cities defund? I mean, Seattle did a major defund push. We got CHOP. Crime went crazy, murders, I think something like up 600%. But now suddenly they're saying, okay, maybe we're not going to fully defund. Or the mayor of even crazy Portland, who got heckled out of his own apartment, had to leave because of protesters and move. Suddenly he's moving a little against it. Do you see some hope in some of these places?
Yeah, I think that things ebb and flow. You're going to have police becoming excellent, and then you're going to have times where they hate the police. And I think that we're experiencing that now because it's a mathematical equation. It's very simple. There's no way to evade it. If you defund the police, you lose police officers, then you cannot have an adequate amount of people to push law and order. And so people are going to do crimes. And here's another thing. In addition to defunding the police and demoralizing the police, when you have the prosecutors not even prosecuting people on crimes, especially in places like California and different places where you can steal $900 worth of stuff and you're not going to be prosecuted. When you couple that with defunding the police, I mean, a city cannot exist. A city cannot stand. Small businesses cannot live. Even major corporations have the financial support to leave a city. And then you have an economic structure that's downtrodden or destroyed in some of these cities where you see the proliferation of violence and proliferation of theft. I mean, we see it all over the country now. People are just bum rushing these places, stealing hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars worth of property. It can only go on so long before people begin to say, okay, enough is enough. There's no way we can survive this. People are dying every day in the streets. I come outside. I used to be able to have my car to park it on the street. Now it's getting vandalized. People taking my property. I don't feel safe. When that begins to happen, you see the character of people voting. You see that begin to change.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.